Hello everyone. Welcome to the StoryHolic channel. What would you do if you had money, charisma, and a bunch of people to be all over you? Today I'm going to talk about the documentary, The Most Beautiful Boy in the World, but before I start, of course, subscribe, leave your like and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any new videos here on the channel. Despite sounding very good, the story behind fame is sadder than you might think. And it starts with the renowned Italian director Luchino Visconti. The documentary highlights that he is a very famous figure in the world of cinema, both for his art and his lineage. He came from a noble family and was a communist, despite having several servants. And he was also openly homosexual. He set out on a journey to find the most perfect beauty in a boy to play the lead role in his next film, 1971's Death in Venice. I won't focus too much on the film, as it's not a video proposal, but it's the story of a 50-year-old man who takes a vacation in Venice in midst of a cholera pandemic, where the government was doing its best to hide from tourists. In the middle of his vacation, he meets Tadzio, a 13-year-old boy, who catches his attention for his incredible beauty. The man becomes obsessed and follows him everywhere. There is some disagreement as to the protagonist's intention, but many believe that this is a story that deals with sexuality and homosexuality. In the book that inspired the movie, the character Tadzio is described as a boy with honey-colored hair, like a Greek god, but the boy is not a god, he is more like an angel of death. So you can understand the importance of finding the right actor for the protagonist. He looked in several countries for child actors who could take on the role, even visiting Hungary, Poland, Finland, Russia. Despite not yet having found the ideal actor, the director was determined. Until suddenly, Bjorn Andresen shows up to audition and he was pretty shy. Right away, he draws the attention of those involved with the film. The Italian director wanted a younger, not-so-tall child, while the actor was 15 years old and quite tall. Of course, after all, his name is Bjorn. And unlike the other actors, he didn't bring any photos to present or portfolio. This part of his story reminded me of the beginning of the stories of anime protagonists, who arrive with nothing and completely unprepared and still pass the test. He tells in the documentary that he dropped out of school to live with his grandmother and that he never had parents. His mother died very early and for a long time he didn't know what happened, because everyone kept it a secret, and for him and his sister, the mother had simply disappeared, and that wasn't enough, he never knew who his father was. His grandmother wanted her grandson to be a celebrity, so she signed him up for several different activities and Bjorn just went along with his grandmother's wishes without thinking. The only thing he was right about is that he wanted to get on with the music. He said he didn't know, while shooting the film, how much his life would change, but it was nice to travel abroad and life on set was good. Visconti denied that the film had any sexual or erotic connotations, but rather that it was about pure love. Look, this is a story of a 50-year-old man obsessed with a 13-year-old boy, and it's still about pure love. It's very complex and very difficult for the audience to accept. Visconti also argued that it would have been worse if he had put a female character in the lead. Bjorn's grandmother also participated in the movie in a small role, which made her very happy. Bjorn mentioned that the entire team was formed by homosexuals and that Visconti established an order so that no one was looking at little Tadzio without telling Bjorn. In 1971 the film premiered in London and was attended by the Queen and Princess Anne, where Visconti declared Bjorn to the press as the most beautiful boy in the world. That title followed Bjorn for the rest of his life, like a damned sentence. Several newspapers have come to label Bjorn as such. Bjorn said that suddenly people started following him like a swarm of bats and some started to suck up to him. But for him it was a nightmare because he knew it was strange for people out of nowhere to like him. He remembers that after the premiere dinner, his grandmother went to sleep and left him with Visconti to do whatever they wanted. The director took him to a gay nightclub. He said it was quite uncomfortable, because not only had he never been to a nightclub, there he had attracted the eyes of several older men. People devoured me with their eyes, rolled their tongues and wet their mouths. I started drinking what I could to erase it and I don't even remember how I got home. Bjorn said as he remembered. You could feel that he was not well at that time. There is a moment in the documentary that a childhood friend of his shows old photos where he looked very sad. And he confirms how lonely he was. After his debut he spent a lot of time in Japan, that was in the 70s. There he became perhaps the first Western idol, and some say he was the one who established the idol concept as it is now. He says people with scissors tried cut a piece of his hair for them. There he recorded several commercials and even recorded pop songs in Japanese, even without knowing how to speak. And it influenced a generation of Japanese artists, mainly the bishinen, who are aimed at the female audience. That was the peak of his popularity. The artist Ryoko Ikeda said in the documentary that she was impressed when she discovered that there was someone so beautiful, and was inspired by him to create Lady Oscar in the manga The Rose of Versailles, but this dark look, of the guy who plays the piano and has long hair I've seen it a lot in manga. Of course I don't think it's all based on him, but indirectly, he contributed to popularizing the look. Ikeda herself said that she believes he inspired all shoujo manga artists in some way. But like many famous artists, he also suffered at this time. It was after a show that the people responsible for his career gave him pills, which he doesn't even know what they were today, let alone back then. His girlfriend cries upon hearing this and says in the documentary that it was child abuse. In 1976 he went to film a film in France, where he received long love letters, expensive gifts and lots of money, all of which only increased his ego. I thought they liked me, but I was just a trophy for them, says the actor. Currently Bjorn is incredibly thin and looking older than he is. He was living in a small apartment covered in garbage. He calls for legal advice, because the landlord wanted to evict him, as some neighbors accuse him of letting the gas leak and almost causing a fire, but Bjorn denies it. His girlfriend Jessica says this is just part of the worry, because there were oil stains in the kitchen that could be a source of fire. She also says that the bedding was filthy and falling apart from so many bugs, but his girlfriend helps him clean, while wearing masks, and after 10 days of cleaning, the apartment is clean and he manages not to be evicted. His daughter Robin Roman said that for a lot of her childhood, Bjorn didn't answer the phone, and now that he says it's not a good time and hangs up. She says there are things children shouldn't know about their parents. She remembers that when she was 14, Bjorn opened up to her a little bit. She said many bad experiences from the movie Death in Venice would have been assuaged if he had a mother and father with him. She ends by saying that he is not a good father in practice. As soon as she enters her father's apartment, she reminds him that she hasn't been there for 11 years. They open a photo album of when Bjorn got married and their daughter was born. He says his biggest wish was for his daughter not to go through what he went through. She says the family broke up because of alcohol, but that she considers herself a healthy adult more because her parents lived apart than together. She says that Bjorn said she could ask him anything she wanted to know several times when he was drunk. She says she was afraid to ask in those moments, but would ask now. He just replies that he didn't want to be so lonely and wanted to tell her anything she wanted to know, even if it was just his side of the story. At one point in the documentary he reveals how his son Elvin died. He says that his wife had taken their daughter to kindergarten and had left their 9-month-old son by his side. Bjorn had come home very late and had slept very little the night before, and as he was very drunk he fell asleep. He woke up to his wife's scream. He remembers that the boy's lips were already blue and that he and his wife tried to resuscitate the boy, but it was in vain. The cause of death was sudden infant death syndrome, which is when the baby dies for no apparent reason, usually during sleep. But Bjorn blames the lack of love and ends up saying that the child had a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. After all, he brought a lot of happiness to the whole family. Then Robin said not only lost his brother, but lost his father, because Bjorn falls into depression, alcoholism and self-destruction. Bjorn reveals that everything that was going through his head was just, poor me. He ends by saying that if he hadn't gone out the night before and been more like an adult his son would be alive today. The daughter says it's painful to watch her father audition for the film Death in Venice. Because the movie was a turning point that resulted in everything that happened. She sees how uncomfortable her father was and that people don't know that the boy in the film is very sensitive and shy. He didn't want to be there, let alone take off his clothes for the test. And if she could go back in time she would tell grandma not to do that and leave him alone. His career has had ups and downs over the years. In 2019 he appeared in the movie Midsommar. But he continues to work as an actor and musician to this day. The documentary ends with him reading the letter his mother wrote before she died while looking out to sea, seeing where it all started, playing Tadzio for the film Death in Venice. This is yet another story that serves to warn those who believe that money and fame are everything. I didn't know the actor, but I really enjoyed getting to know his story. I recommend the documentary if you want to see something different, and I think you can learn from his life. Well, that was the story for today. I hope you liked it. See you in the next video.